to the PostalMate webinar, Certified Mail Plus More in PostalMate. My name is Karen Grant, and I'll be your instructor today. And just a heads up, we're going to address the highlights or things that most commonly affect our stores. It is not completely comprehensive. As I go through in preparing a webinar like this, I gain new respect for postal employees, for the amount of information that they have to learn and know. And I also gain a little bit of forgiveness to them when they get it wrong, because there's so many details, and the devils are always in the details, right? So it's really kind of crazy what you have to know. And for those of you that don't know, I've been in this industry 36 years. I was a store owner for the first 25 years, multiple stores. And we actually ordered the domestic mail manual every other year, not every year, but it was about the size of okay, this is going to date me, Sears catalogs. But I mean, it was probably 4.5, 5 inches thick for the domestic mail manual, and like 2 inches thick for the international mail manual. And they have to pretty much, I mean, I wouldn't say they have to memorize it, but there's a lot of pieces they really do. Great respect for them. They don't always get it right, but boy, they've got a load to bear here. So we're going to get started. And the first thing we're going to talk about while people are still signing in is registered. Oh, wait. No registered. Can do certified mail. So let me start by saying that when your customer walks into your store, and if they ask for registered mail, this is especially important to newer store owners or employees. They may not be really asking for registered mail. They might be, but as a former store owner, I can tell you that your customers don't know all the right words and terminology, and they just know they need signatures. And so they will frequently get the words mixed up, and they'll say, I need to send this registered, when in fact, they don't want to send it registered. They actually want to send it certified. So your response to that would be, oh, do you mean certified and perhaps with a return receipt postcard? Oh, yeah, that's what I want. 9 out of 10, maybe 99 out of 100. That's going to be the correct go through on that. So if that's what we're going to do, then we'll talk about certified mail in depth shortly. But let's talk about registered for a minute. So here's what you need to know. You cannot send registered mail from your store. Now, unless we do have a handful, like 8 PostalMate stores that are also CPUs, contract postal units. They are actual post offices. You see them sometimes in a Hallmark shop or something like that. We do have a few of those folks. They know their own rules. I'm not speaking to them, and they know that. I'm speaking to the rest of you who are either, you might be a CMRA, like have mailboxes, and you may not have mailboxes, but you're still not allowed to send registered mail. Registered mail, for the post office to adhere to its part of the registered mail part, to guarantee that, they have to receive the item from the customer, not the store. There can be no intermediary. So if you present it to them, they will not guarantee everything like they do if your customer presents it to them. So it is a chain of custody issue. And here's all the blah, blah, blah rules if you really want to read it. I'm not one for reading PowerPoints, folks. So if you want to read it or take a cell phone picture of it or a screenshot, you feel welcome to do that. But the important thing is that a CMRA, the sender, your customer, must present the accountable items at the post office. And it's going to require, if it's a package, it's going to require paper tape and all this other stuff. You can certainly box it up and put paper tape on it and charge them for that, but then it needs to be walked down to the post office by your customer. Sorry, that's just the way it is. You know what? These come along, they do come along, but they're fairly rare. Don't just do your customer a favor and do the right thing. This is obviously a very important item to your customer. So let's get into first class letters. And I've got some notes here I'm going to be using. And I will start off by saying I do not have a cheat sheet for this webinar. And I apologize for that. There is so much stuff that I literally finished the finishing touches on this, and I have been working on it for a while, at 11 p.m. last night. And I just could not stay up another 2 hours to get a cheat sheet. So take screenshots, take snapshots with your phone, and you'll be able to get this recording and you will get to replay this. So we're going to start with first class letters. And some of you know this, but again, for newbies, just a heads up, it is against federal law to send a non-urgent letter, so like a letter or a flat, by UPS or FedEx ground. Now, we probably do that fairly frequently. I know in my stores, we used to get the request for it a lot. You can get it, especially if it's going somewhere in town or within your state. You can send a letter in a regular manila envelope and send it ground, and it'll get there next day, and it's only going to cost your customer $9 or $10. But that's actually against the law. So I have good news and bad news. The good news is it's against the law. You can post it, and then you can upsell them to a faster service. Or you can be aware that, well, the postal police really don't monitor this, and FedEx and UPS don't care at all because it's not their job to monitor you. So you probably won't get into trouble for it, but I don't encourage you breaking the law. You will have pushback from your customers, especially if it's something they've been doing and you change the rule now. But it is, and this is a weird one for those of you who aren't aware of this, but the post office has a legal monopoly on non-urgent letters. You can Google it. Google knows everything. Just Google it, post office monopoly first class letters, and you'll find all kinds of information out about it. Like I said, in my 36 years, I have never known the postal police to try to catch anybody doing this. But it is just good to know because we do want to be law-abiding stores. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about shape-based mail because the whole reason for this webinar has been we have had a, as you know, last year has been a terrific year for our stores. I mean, we had a few stores that were in industrial areas that didn't do well, but those of you in residential areas, especially near grocery store anchors and stuff, you had a tremendous year last year, maybe the best ever. We do shipping counts at PostalMate, so I know what our annual accounts were. And just so you know, our annual count last year was just under 20 million packages shipped through PostalMate. That's right, 20 million packages shipped. That's not drop-offs, that's shipments, okay? And that was 48% higher. Well, let's see, in December, it was 48% higher than the year before in December. I don't know what it was for the whole year, but that's even if it was 25% higher than the year before, that's a lot. It puts a strain on our systems, but it makes you really, really busy. And what we found is we have a lot of new store owners. So a lot of people and new employees and people that don't know some of the basic rules. So we're going to go through these quickly. Again, I'm going to highlight. I'm not going to go into really deep detail, but things that you need to know. So the first thing you need to know is first class mail is shape-based. You don't get to choose if it's a letter, flat, or parcel. Okay, that is not your choice. That is completely based on the characteristics of that mail piece. Your choice is to send it first class or send it priority mail, but you don't have a choice about which division, letter, flat, or parcel it is. That's based on the criteria we'll review. You all need to have one of these, and I'm sorry the pictures are so horrible here, but the one on the left is from the USPS, and the one on the right is from stamps.com. The USPS one is kind of hard to get. There's also a black and white single sheet plastic one out there. That works too. There's different variations of this. If you do not have a first class mail shape-based template in your store, please get one. They are available at stamps.com for $7.95. And so, parcel, Darren. Usually. And so please order that. And make sure that you read all the instructions on it. So we're going to talk about the characteristics, and these are the things involved that can determine whether it's a letter or a flat or a parcel. There are minimum sizes, maximum weights, shape, the texture of it. If it's got plastic on the outside, it can affect it. Uniformity, how bumpy it is inside, the closure type, is it rigid or is it flexible? The aspect ratio, that has to do with the length versus the height of it. How you place the address. Do you place it on sideways or straightways, and which way is that? And then, of course, what the contents are, believe it or not, can affect it. So we'll talk about that. First thing I want to address, and I know this left side is a little fuzzy. It's just there for mostly for the pictures, so that you can right now we're talking about letters. On the right hand side, and I think it's same right and left to you, are gift cards. And gift cards are fine to send. Don't get me wrong. You can send a gift card, but you can't send it in a gift card envelope. They're too small. It does not meet the minimum size requirements, generally speaking, for a letter. So you want to place that envelope in another envelope. And not that you would get the request, but every once in a while, you never know. You get some person in there that might want to. So please make sure that it's in a big enough envelope that it's not going to fall in the cracks anywhere, especially if it's a gift card, which of course is kind of like sending money. So that is not mailable as it is. Now this letter, this pink letter here, is checking all the right boxes. This is how a letter should be addressed. And I know it's small. We'll get it big in a minute. But postage in the upper right, address clearly written in the middle, return address clearly written in the upper left. Looks perfect. Okay, but there's weird things that you can do that makes this a problem. Now remember, we're talking about letters right now, not flats, not packages, just letters. So as you can see, the address on that, Elizabeth Parker, is in the same direction as the longest length of the envelope. It's being parallel to the longest length. That is correct. We know that's correct because we've seen this since we were born in this country, that's how you address an envelope. But occasionally you'll have some nutcase, nope, sorry, didn't say that. You'll have somebody who will decide to do something different, and they'll try to do as the vertical orientation on the far right there, and they will try to address it that way. Well, they can do that. However, it's non-machinable, which means there's an extra fee for that. I want to say it's like 21 cents cost, and then you can mark it up. So that will have to have extra postage on it. Whereas if they did it the horizontal way, it would be just the standard postage. If you do it vertical, just because you change the direction that the address is displayed, that will require additional postage on a letter, non-machinable postage. Okay. All right. These, we often see these come in. This is frequently used for invitations, wedding invitations and things like that. They used to almost always be really heavy and need 2 stamps or 2-ounce postage anyway. But nowadays, more and more people are just using a postcard or a photo invitation in it. So it's only one thing in it. So often it doesn't need additional postage. However, because it is square, it also is non-machinable and will require that non-machinable charge. Like I said, I think it's 21 cents. And then here's a good picture of the perfect envelope and how we would want it always. But if you put any of these type of things in that envelope, guess what? You got it. It makes it non-machinable, and you have to add that extra 21 cents. So it needs to be uniform in how it is. What's the word I'm looking for? Uniform in, okay, but you got the idea. So in shape, well, that's a good one. Uniform in shape. Perfect, Cameron. Okay, so that's kind of it in the nutshell. So just so you have it clear, on a letter, and we're still talking only letters. Your first question is, does it have a non-machinable characteristic? If no, you get to send it as a letter, just like that pink envelope with a letter in it. But if it does, then you have to send it as a letter plus a non-machinable surcharge. Now here's the question, and this is for you, Sandy. A letter can never be a flat or a parcel if it meets the dimension and weight requirements of a letter. Okay, so if the dimensions say it's a letter and the weight, which is under 3.5 ounces, say it's a letter, doesn't matter what you do to it. It can never be a flat. It's always going to only going to be a letter. Now, mind you, one of the dimension requirements for a letter is it be no more thick than 1/4 inch. So you put something very big in there and you have bumped it up, but it's not a letter. Then it would not be a letter. But if you keep it under 1/4 inch, under 11.5 inches long, under 6 1/8 inches tall, then it's a letter no matter what's inside. Trey, that's true, but you need to finish that sentence. A first class what? And I'll get to, and I'm going to get to that point in just a minute. I'm doing really good at watching the questions today. What about sending a cloth mask in an envelope? Well, if you lay that mask out flat in the envelope, then it will probably, probably stay under that 1/4 inch, depending on what kind of mask it is. So it would still be a letter. However, because it is not uniform in shape or in thickness, then it's going to have a non-machinable surcharge to it. The length, the 11 and 1/4 is always the longest length. It doesn't matter whether you stand it up tall or use it long, vertical or horizontal. When you're looking at dimensions for post office, the longest direction is always called the length. Okay. Yes, Samuel. Okay, in PostalMate, we're going to look at first class letters in both a parcel or document and in quick postage. We're going to start with quick postage real quick. So in quick postage, when you are doing a letter, right down there, there's some a magic thing that says guidelines. See that? And this is where you apply that non-machinable. Now, my retail price on that is 29 cents. But like I said, I think the wholesale is 21 cents. So this is on quick postage. On doing a full label, and most of us don't do a full label with a letter, but let's just say you did. On that one, it's on the screen after the rate comparison screen, the add-on screen, and you'll see right there, you'll see non-machinable. And as soon as you check mark that, this box, and I'm going to show you the box, will pop up. So for both of these, it's the same pop-up that comes up, and it looks like this. And it gives the highlights of the most common items that you need to be aware of for non-machinable. So this lets you check things, and then you can always back out of it. If you selected it, you can always back out of it, but that way you can check every time. If you think something is weird with this envelope, I need to review the list because I don't have it memorized, and you can go through. And then there's the magic more info if you really want to read the more info. What we have listed here is probably a high 90%, I'm going to say 98, 99% of all letters that have non-machinable are going to be one of these things. There are some really weird things that are additional that you can read on, and I encourage you to do that once every couple of years and refresh your memory on that. But for the most part, this list will do you. So now we're going to talk about first class flats. So first class flats look something like this. And I want to ask you a question. We're going to do a poll. I have 2 of them. And I want to remind you in this poll that I cannot see what you vote. Okay, so I won't know if you're really, really smart or if you're just learning. I will have no idea. So please don't be embarrassed to vote. I want you to vote so we can get good results. I will show you the results. The results only show cumulative numbers. So this one is, so in this one, this is a first class flat, or is it? And either it is a flat, yes, because it's flex. Oh, by the way, we're putting in this children's magazine. Sorry. So we're putting this children's magazine into the flat. I know it's like I blew air in it. Okay, there's nothing inside of it right now. So we're putting in the children's magazine. It's not that puffy. It's going to flatten down. So yes, you say yes. This is a first class flat. It's flexible, uniform in shape, and meets the size requirements. You say no. It's not uniform enough in shape around the edges. So is it a first class flat or no? Not. And I'm going to launch. Don't put it in there. Wait. There you go. You should be able to see the poll. That's where I want you to vote. Is it a first class flat? Yes or no? And I think you're all going to be impressed with the numbers here. I'm going to close this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to share the poll. Wow, this is great. 55% of you said yes, it's a first class flat, and 45% of you say no, it's not. And this is why we're having this class. The answer is yes, it is. Let's see, it is considered a flat. Okay, so the postal rules say that on a flat, that the 1 inch around all the sides are not counted in looking for the uniformity of shape as long as the objects inside are not within that one inch. So in this case, we know that's probably more likely about a 1/2 inch. We know that the item itself can't get in that 1/2 inch because it's sealed all the way around. So this 1/2 inch all the way around would not be counting towards the uniformity. So they're looking only for what's in the middle. And we know that this bubble envelope plus this thin magazine will be 3/4 of an inch or less. So this is a flat, a first class flat. If your post office does return this, then you can have a word with them. It's always best to print out the page and highlight it from the DMM or from the Postal Operations Manual and take it with you. They will be embarrassed. They won't want to correct themselves. I'm sorry. Thank you. Rose, you're perfect. Thank you for telling me. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so yes, I do that a lot and I'm sorry. So yes, and so again, that 1/2 inch around the edges here, sorry, I'll point that out again, that sealed area does not count. And if you get these back from the post office, you're going to have to argue that with the post office, but the 1 inch around the edges doesn't count. I will try to find that exact, I had it yesterday. I may have even included it. I will find that, and in a future webinar or somewhere I will post that so you can get that information. Because you need to argue that because the cost difference between a flat and a parcel is a lot. All right. So moving forward here. Sorry. There we go. I had it. Write that down. DMM 100.2.4. Uniform thickness. When determining variance in thickness, exclude the outside edges of the mail piece 1 inch from the edge when the contents do not extend into that edge. Yay! All right. Take a screenshot, take a snapshot with your cell phone. I'm going to change this screen in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So what makes a flat? And I have these different things, and remember, be very careful when you're choosing flat. Now, we are talking first class flat. We're not talking about a priority mail flat, which is a same word used totally different. Okay, that's just a totally different animal. That's lions. We're talking about bears. Okay, so a first class flat has to have the characteristics we've mentioned. And I just want to point out, and I'll just share with you my thoughts on this because everything is a little bit subjective. Okay, this is not a flat. Obviously, it's going to be too bumpy in there, right? This is not a flat because it's not flexible. This one we're going to come back to because this one depends. Teddy bear, no way, Jose. This one, perfect. This is a flat, just like the children's magazine with the 1/2 inch around the edges. That's a flat. And then this one right here is no way, Jose, because it's got a box in it. That's not flat enough. It has to be 3/4 of an inch or less, and it has to be uniform in shape. That one's not. So I'm going to come back to this one, but I want to share real quickly. You can enter words on your screen, and hopefully you have. If you're newer, you don't know this or haven't done this yet. But you can enter words here, must fit size restrictions, must fit size shape rules, whatever. Those type of things to remind yourself, and particularly, this is wonderful, if your customer is able to see your screen, then, and you're telling them, no, you can't do that because it doesn't qualify for the rules, they can clearly see that there are some rules there that need to be followed. They may even ask you, well, why doesn't it? Oh, well, it has to be flat and uniform shape, blah, 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 because those are the ones that usually get it. So we're going to come back to these cardboard mailers. And right here, the cardboard mailers and usually they're for photos, but you can put other things in them. The cardboard mailers come in a variety of stiffnesses, shall we call it. I have seen them that are so firm, there's no way. I mean, it's like freaking wood. And then I've seen them super cheap. In fact, if you're an old timer like I am, and I know Sarah's watching, and Sarah's an old timer, sorry, Sarah, too. We remember the days when the priority mail envelopes were as heavy or heavier than the UPS and FedEx envelopes. If you play with them today, they're quite a bit thinner. In fact, the UPS and FedEx ones are thinner now too, but they're using thinner and thinner materials. So the thin materials on this would be a flat, okay? So we say this has to be flexible. Of course, if you put keys or a teddy bear in here, it's not going to be flat, but let's just assume we put photographs in here. Then this would be a flat. So there is a test that they have at the post office called the flexibility test. And this is what it looks like. And I'm not kidding. This is actually in the domestic mail manual. So for the longest way, you have to be able to put it on your countertop and bend it down by 2 inches. And for the turning it sideways, then you have to bend it down, be able to bend it down 1 inch. They are a disturbed lot. You are right, Cecilia. So that's kind of the rules on this. There's pictures. These pictures were stolen right from the postal website. So no pounds per square inch. That's funny though. But yeah, it just, it has to be able to bend. So the idea is, think typical magazine, comic books, children's magazine, those kinds of things. When you start getting into like paperbacks, well, then sometimes you can bend them, this way, but if the spine is along this edge here, it's not going to bend. So then you have an issue. So then you might have to do it differently. So it may not qualify as a first class flat. If it does not qualify for a first class flat, we'll talk about what that does. Well, I'll talk about it now. I'm looking at the next screen. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, okay, sorry. So in PostalMate, we often wonder about entering dimensions, and you can enter the actual dimensions here. So 0.75, remember a flat has to be 3/4 of an inch or less. It didn't used to matter in PostalMate what you entered. In fact, right now it really doesn't matter what you enter in PostalMate either. We don't restrict letters and flats to 3/4 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch for letters. There's a long reason for that I'm not going to bore you with, but it has to do with the fact that would screw up the rounding up and rounding down for all of the other carriers too. However, Endicia just recently, a few months ago, started enforcing this 3/4 inch rule. So if you were to put an envelope on the scale, a big manila envelope, and let's say it was 14 by 11 by, and you just threw 1 inch in there because you are used to not putting in fractions, Endicia would reject that. So we send that information to Endicia to get your label, and they would say, nope, 1 inch is too thick. So you have to put in now 3/4 of an inch. You could put less, of course, but no more than 0.75 here to get it to go as a flat. They do not monitor letters, and neither do we. So you need to be aware that a letter is 1/4 of an inch or less in thickness. Okay, so it is right here, and if you use the other screen, it's right there, and you can do that. So manila envelopes. This is the perfect manila envelope right down here in the middle. It has, and these are kind of what's out there now for the most part. It has the peel off where it self sticks, but the clasps, the old manila envelopes, and you may sell those, and that's fine to sell these, have the clasps. You have to make sure your customer does not use the clasp. By using the clasp, this becomes a parcel. Kid you not. And that's a lot more expensive. So if they've used the clasp, look, you can tape over it and try, but technically if they use the clasp, the post office can charge additional postage for it, even if you tape over it. And the idea is exactly that. The clasp gets caught in the machinery and causes problems, and that's what makes it an issue. So while this is what we would classify as a non-machinable issue, there really is a non-machinable flat just becomes a parcel. It just gets upgraded to a parcel. So remember, we said letters never get upgraded to a parcel because of non-machinable criteria, but flats, they automatically upgrade to a parcel. So in this case, both of these would be classified as parcels, and this one as a flat. And then I'm losing my train of thought here. I wanted to come back to one more thing here. I'll think of it. Okay, we have another poll. Which label placement is correct? So here is a manila envelope. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. Okay, and I kind of, oops, sorry. There we go. I kind of gave this away earlier, I'm afraid, but hopefully you were listening with only half half an ear. So which label placement is correct? 1, 2, or 3? 1 is horizontal, 2 is vertical, and 3, both are fine. Doesn't matter which direction it is as long as it fits. Okay, I'm closing this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so there you go. 53% of you said 1, 9% said 2, and 38% said both. Okay, we're going to show, and I'm going to share. There is only one correct answer, and it is this one. The address, even though it seems counterintuitive, because this is 4x6, it seems like, you know, you're being more parallel this way. They're interested in the direction of the words. The direction of the words is this way, and they want it to be the same as the longest length of the envelope. Okay, so that's why, so this one right here technically is a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. So they could charge you for parcel package service on this one. Evil people. Okay. Yes, stop buying clasps if you can. Okay. Longest, the addresses should be written parallel to the longest side. And there's the, they probably won't charge a parcel package service, but you know what? If you have an ornery postal place, they might. Okay, so here's kind of the rules here. And I'm sorry, this is really convoluted and but here's your envelope. Does it have a non-machinable characteristic? If no, then send it as a flat. If yes, send it as a first class package. It doesn't have to go into a box to be a package, even though it seems like it should. It doesn't. See this clasp here? Of course, that's usually used for inner office stuff, but that also is non-machinable. So if it has one of those characteristics, then it has to go as a package. A flat cannot be upgraded to a first class package unless it qualifies based on size, weight, or shape-based non-machinable characteristics. Now, the reason that's important is because we have this really bad thing that happens in our industry with store owners and employees that don't understand the rules. Here's the dealio. First class packages get free tracking. First class flats don't. Your customer always wants tracking and you want to deliver the best possible service to your customer. So you put the item in a manila envelope and then you just send it as a first class package. Problem with that is when you do that, the post office is obligated by law to upgrade that service to priority mail. Priority mail. That's going to be a lot more money for somebody on either end, whether they return it or forward it, for somebody to pay several dollars. So that is not something you want to do. You cannot take a manila envelope and just decide to pay the extra to get first class package service with tracking. Now, you can do things to change the shape of that manila envelope to qualify it within the rules to make it a package. And the way you would do that is put a handful of peanuts inside. Okay, that's a long tested rule in this industry. Do not put just one peanut. If it gets flattened, you're all messed up. So put a handful of peanuts inside. That makes it bumpy. It makes it more than 3/4 of an inch, you know, all those things. And then it should go as for a package service. You can even write on the front of the envelope, not uniform in shape. Okay, up by the postage. And that way, if any post office employee says, then they'll see that. Yes, you could make it rigid. That's another one. I've done that too. Take a sheet. We all have extra sheets of cardboard from building boxes and things. So you can take a full sheet of cardboard and put in the envelope to make it rigid. That will also work. Unless somebody along the way rolls it up, makes it less rigid, that should work just fine. I know in my state, for example, they used to send license plates in the mail first class flat. Well, when these rules came along, the state can no longer do that. The cost difference for the government to change from going from paying flats to paying parcels was astronomical. They were not happy about it. Okay, let's see. Place 1 inch thick piece of foam inside will do it too. If you guys don't use EPS styrofoam, which is the big sheets of styrofoam, they're 4 foot by 8 foot sheets of styrofoam, you are missing out on a whole wonderful world of packing. It makes your packing life so amazingly fun. Please do look into that. You also need a hot knife. You can start with a cheap one, a hobby hot knife, but move into a professional one, which are probably about $150. They're amazing. Okay. And if you need tracking, good point, Paul. If you need tracking on a flat and it still qualifies as a flat, you can buy certified. Okay. So that is, you can put certified on a flat, just like you can a letter. All right. Now we're moving forward to a first class package. So first class packages are, the first thing I want to talk about is size. So this one is a ring. It's too small. When you put the address on it and the postage on it, the address has to be shrunk down so tiny to fit on this package that it doesn't become visible soon. And so the front of the package has to be able to hold all of the address, labeling, markings, postage, etc. on one side. Having said that, I want to ask you, and I don't have a poll for this. I probably should have. I don't have a poll for this. What's the smallest size box that you carry for sale? For a lot of you, it's a 4x4x4. Stop carrying a 4x4x4. Just stop. Don't order them again. Get rid of them. Okay, the smallest box you should carry is a 6x4x4. So, and the reason for that is your labels are 6x4. So it is actually federal law that the entire label for post office has to fit on one side of the box. Now, we know that lots of people bend it around the corner, but it is against the rules. And at some point they could, be upset and do something. We're, again, a rule following crowd. We're setting the standard in the industry. We need to be responsible to our customers. And for those of you that are carrying 4x4x4s, the difference between a 4x4 and a 6x4x4 is a half a handful of peanuts. I mean, seriously. So go ahead and sell your 4x4x4s, but then move into, at minimum, a 6x4x4 or a 6x6x4 or a 6 cube. Tubes are fine. Tubes are packages though. Okay. And tubes you do have to put on the label on it. The problem is when you get those skinny tubes and you can't wrap it around, lengthwise, and you have to do it the other direction. The problem is barcode scanners don't bend. And so that becomes a real problem for them. So if I were going to carry tubes, and I wouldn't, if I were going to carry tubes, I would only carry 3-inch tubes. I wouldn't carry tubes because there's an extra fee for it with FedEx and UPS. I would carry triangle tubes and rectangle tubes. But in my old store, I confess I did have 3-inch tubes. I didn't advertise them. I kept them in the back, and I only sent them mail or FedEx Express, which waives the fee. FedEx Ground does not, but FedEx Express waives the fee. Okay. Pro tip. All right. First class package service. You have on your PostalMate 2 first class package services. One is just first class package service, and the other is first class package service dash retail. Now, some of you may have removed one of them in the past. Some of you that are new store owners of previous existing stores, the previous store owner may have removed it because they didn't know what it was, didn't know how to use it properly, or just didn't want the confusion. But let me explain the difference between these two. It's changed a little bit since I last did a webinar because some of the rules have changed, but it's mostly the same. So we'll talk about first class package service retail. That's the one that we've actually always had. That's always been around, something of this version. It's up to 13 ounces. You can send anything to anywhere in it. I mean, anything legal, anywhere in it. Can be personal, business. It can have a letter or card in it. It is more expensive than the other. It can be a postage stamp. However, Endicia does not have authority from the USPS to create quick postage for that. So Endicia is not able to provide a stamp for it. So of course, neither can PostalMate. But if you have stamps in a drawer and you want to put on, It's not a great idea because this is now a zoned service package. First class package service is now zoned. So it's not the same amount for 2 ounces to California as it is for 2 ounces to New York. Unless maybe you're dead in the center of the country and it's even zones to both. No, we won't go there. Okay, so if you're going to do that and you're going to have a stamp, you're going to add a tracking label to it. But that's it. And there's a good reason to have first class package service retail. But remember, it's more expensive. So now let's look at first class package service. It has no dash retail after it. And I'll show you what it looks like in PostalMate. This is actually good for a few ounces more, up to just under a pound. It may not, here's the only rule really that you need to worry about. It may not have any documents or personal correspondence. It can have a receipt, an invoice, anything related to business of the contents can be in there. Okay. But it can't be like a toy birthday gift for Jimmy and grandma's putting a birthday card in there. That cannot happen. Or something for the college student and even something as much as hi honey, hope you're having fun at school, love mom. That's personal correspondence. So that cannot be in there. Now, do the package police actually look at that? Well, they can. They do have authority to open first class package service without the dash retail at any point in time they want to, without suspicion, without cause. There's a few levels of service they can do that with, and it can be opened along the way. Media mail is another one of those. Then other classes are completely protected. So the first class package service dash retail is a completely protected package service and can only be opened with cause by an appropriate postal inspector. So there's a lot of weird rules here. But first class package service is less expensive, and it's not 5 cents less. I mean, it's a considerable amount, and I'm going to show you in just a moment. It is neither of these neither of these can be done in quick postage. They both have to be done through the whole label thing. It comes out as an IMPB label. They both do. They will have tracking on them. It's the one on the right, the cheaper one, is not available at the post office. So if your customer goes to the post office with a 14-ounce package, they have to pay priority mail or parcel select retail ground prices. Those are the only options to them at the post office. So that's kind of a bonus. And it is also zone based. I recommend using both. For almost all shipments, I would use the one on the right because it's cheaper. And I can mark it up more. See, I wouldn't necessarily let my customer save a lot of money on it. I would appropriately mark it up more. So if I had one marked up 30%, I might mark this one up 35%. I would want the extra money, but it's a win-win. I would have that first class package service retail in my PostalMate with the caveat that it's for letters. So how do you do that? How do you remember all these rules? Well, let's look at that. So here's a typical PostalMate screen, and I've got only 13 ounces there. And because it's 13 ounces, I have actually both options showing up here. So you can see the difference: first class package service, first class package service retail. The one on the left there is cheaper to me, and I have these marked up equally. So you can see it's a pretty substantial difference to the customer. It's $1.06. You can mark your first class package service up a little bit more and maybe give your customer a 10-cent discount instead of a $1 discount. But anyway, that's another webinar. But when I change the postage to 14 ounces, then I have only one of the two services appearing, because this is the one that goes up to just under a pound. So just under 16 ounces is where this one will stop. See how I've got words in there: no cards or letters, 2 to 7 days. I blew this up so you guys could see this. Again, if you want to take a screenshot or a snapshot of this, these are ideas, not things you have to do. Of course, these are ideas, but that way now you can have these both on and you know which is which very easily. Okay, this one is no cards or letters. That one is okay for personal use and business use, any use. But that's just the reminder for it. 2 to 7 days, 2 to 7 days plus, 2 to 9 days, 5 to 20 days. I don't care what you put in there. Here's what I would never do. I would never put the short end. I would never put 2 to 4 days or something like that. We all have had the experience in the last 6 months where the post office, and every carrier, but particularly the post office, has had heavy delays. You don't want your customer coming in angry with you that you told them 2 to 7 days and it took 2 weeks to get there. By the way, here's your cost on that. So your cost on the difference between the two was $1.13. And on something that's this lightweight, that's quite a bit of money. Okay. Now we're going to get into certified mail. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Hold on to your hat here. Here we go. So certified mail can be done in PostalMate with both quick postage and with the full parcel or document. We're going to start with quick postage. This is the way I do not recommend doing it, and there's a lot of good reasons here, but we'll discuss what, but it can be done. So and this, you often will choose this one because your customer comes in with things already pre-filled out, the forms, which is not uncommon, especially around tax season. So I get why you would do this, but I just want you to understand what you need to do with this. So when you choose quick postage, you're going to get to the screen and you're going to check mark certified, and then you're going to click on the tracking number and you're going to enter the tracking number from the certified. And this is from the form 3800, which we'll talk about more in a minute. And then you're going to check mark return receipt if they want the return receipt and enter that tracking number. Now, they don't have to have the return receipt. You can send certified all on its own without return receipt. Certified has two functions. First of all, it's a proof of mailing, which is really important in what we're going to talk about. And second of all, it gets a signature upon delivery. Now, your customer doesn't get a copy of that unless they do the return receipt, then they get the postcard. But it does happen, and they can be, I think there's for a ridiculous fee, they can pull that signature. So if your customer ever had to go to court to prove something, that could be done. And that's the whole purpose for sending certified, is to protect your customer. Your customer needs to protect himself for some reason. He needs it there certified. So this is how you would do it in quick postage. This is how you enter the return receipt portion. Okay, this is correct label placement on this. So you're going to put the certified mail sticker. This is the 3800 form, the green one, the green and white one here, on the envelope, usually to the right of the return address and to the left of the postage. And I know that postage amount isn't much, it isn't the correct amount. I just had to find one and stick it there. And that's what it will look like proper. Okay. If you want to add the return receipt on a regular size envelope, usually you're going to add that to the back. However, on a manila envelope, you can add it to the front. And I like to add it to the front so it doesn't get missed. Just out of habit, by the way, guys, I always used to tape over one of the edges of the return receipt where the guy's, let's say his right index finger is. I would kind of tape over that to make sure that it wouldn't break away completely. I know it irritates the end driver, but I would rather have him irritated than my customer irritated. So that was just my thing. So that's how you fix that. But you're going to leave the tail on the envelope. And this is where a lot of stores mess up. A lot of stores are in the habit of tearing that piece off and maybe rubber stamping it and giving it to their customer and saying goodbye. No, this isn't, then you've ruined the certified. It's not certified. It is not certified. It is a piece of mail that's going to get tracked and it's going to get a signature, but there's no proof of mailing. You have taken away the proof of mailing. Well, proof of mailing is what you need for the IRS or a boatload, any kind of legal thing. You need proof of mailing as much as you need proof of delivery. So by just rubber stamping it and handing it to your customer with a receipt, that doesn't do anything. It's not legally acceptable in most courts of law. Now, your local jurisdiction may accept it. You know, the judge around the corner, justice of the peace, justice of the peace may accept it. But for the most part, in federal court, like IRS, they won't accept that. There's no way. So you leave this tail on, and then you have to march your little backside down to the post office, stand in line, and have them round date it with one of these round dates. Only the post office clerks are allowed to have this round date, and it's not allowed to exit their building, period. Okay. It has to be round dated, and that's what makes it certified. They'll hand you back the round dated piece then, and you can bring it back to the store. I would file it in a little index card box by alphabet or by date, and pop that in there. And then if your customer needs it, they can come in and get it, and you have that. But that's how you do that. There is one alternative to this, which I am not going to go into detail about. But if the alternative to taking it down, to take it down to the post office and getting it round date is if you use a firm firm holdout book, I think is what it's called. And it's where you log everything in, and then it still gets round dated, but there's other rules. And I am not an expert in those rules. Well, hardly an expert in this, but I'm not, it's definitely not an expert in that. So I don't want to teach you what I don't know. And so, but I want you to know there is an alternative. So if this, if you decided, oh my gosh, I've been doing it wrong and I have to do something, but I'm a lone person and can't go to the post office, what do I do? Then you need to look at that firm holdout. Because the round date is what makes the certified a certified. So let's talk about the alternative way in PostalMate, and that's using parcel or document button. And on here, it's going to print out on your 4x6 label printer. And the first thing you know is that it doesn't fit a regular standard business envelope, which is true. So you have two choices. You either sell a bigger envelope, and by the way, you can get envelopes that are 6 inches by 11 3/8. I found them. I don't think I included a picture of it, but I found them online. 6 by 11 3/8. They're not cheap. They're like 26 cents each cost to you. So for that, you might as well just turn the label sideways and charge the non-machinable fee. 6 of one, half dozen of another. So that's how it would be, but you can't send it like this. You can't wrap it around. They'll get really angry about that. So here's turning it sideways. And this works, but it has to have the extra postage, the extra 21 cents. Yes, you can do that in PostalMate. And then you're perfectly fine. You also have to add this green sticker here. This dark green sticker is called the 3800N. I always, as a reminder, I always say the N stands for no barcode. 3800 no barcode. That's not what it really stands for, but I don't know what it really stands for, but that works for me. So the 3800N has to go on when you create a full label. And that's because there's often, and if you look at this label, there's often not anything that really says certified on it very well. They're not too, sometimes there's certified words and sometimes there's not. I don't know what the rule is on that, but we all know that there's post people that are half blind or otherwise. So having that big green sticker helps the delivering post office person to know, carrier to know that it's certified. So when it's a flat and you are putting on the label, add that 3800, and remember, place the address label parallel to the longest length so that when you're reading it, the words go in the same direction as the longest length of the envelope. And stealth postage no longer applies to any certified mail, even whether it's done through quick postage or full label. That was a rule change that my understanding was that was actually the rule all along. I don't have this I don't have any proof of this. This is just this is a rumor I heard. It was the rule all along, but Endicia didn't enforce it until recently. So either way, it's unfortunate, but the postage will show when you're using certified. Now, when you use certified doing the full 4x6 label, at the end of the day, you're going to complete a carrier pickup for the post office. You should be doing that every day anyway. But here's where some magic happens. Remember with doing it through quick postage, you had to leave the tail on that other form that you used, and you had to take it down to the post office and get it rounded. And well, when you do the full label, you don't have to do all that. You've printed out the label, popped it on, and then at the end of the day, you do your carrier pickup in PostalMate. And after that, you get printed out a scan form, what's called a scan form. Every day you should get one of these. And your driver or carrier who picks up from your store, or if you are one of those poor souls that has to actually take your mail in, you get this scanned every day and it uploads all of the tracking numbers that you created that day. Now, let me clear up some misinformation. The scan form never includes drop-offs. The scan form never includes quick postage, but it does replace that round date need for insured and certified mail. So you don't have to go to the post office with this. This is perfect. And then it uploads the tracking numbers. So this should be performed every single day in PostalMate. And Cecilia, you said that your scan form never matches. So let me tell you a little known secret. Tim, I want to get back to you on that. Don't let me forget. A little known secret about Endicia. Endicia, our businesses run different from most of Indicia's customers. We're a retail environment. Most of their customers are either offices or small fulfillment centers. Okay. But we're a retail environment. And so we might have our afternoon mail pickup at 3 in the afternoon, but we still have lots of mail that comes in. I mean, we don't close our doors. Mail comes in at 4, 5, 6 until we close, right? Um, the post office clears out your Endicia account of packages at night. So any packages or any mail that you did between 3 and 6, or your pickup and your close of that day, that will be virtually, I won't say it will be erased, but it will not be included on the scan form the next day. Yeah. And so your scan form is only from when you open until the pickup of that day. But I have a workaround for you. Magic. What you need to do is call Endicia and tell them, and it escalated if you have to. The newbies are not going to know what you're talking about, but the old bees will. Um, you want to change your scan forms from automatic to manual. Okay. And what manual means is it's from one query to the next query. Okay. So you're going to change from automatic to manual. So that already paid for admission for a lot of you, right? Okay. Tim asked a question. Excuse my ignorance here. What is stealth postage? No problem in being new. Stealth postage is used when you use a full label in PostalMate for post office. It will say postage paid or postage prepaid. It won't have the dollar amount there, which is really cool because, of course, you upcharge it. You charge $7. It costs you $4.90. $4.90 is what prints on the package label, but it doesn't have the dollar amount. Says $4.90. It says postage paid, which is wonderful because if your customer should get it back or see it as you're processing or whatever, they will never know that you paid $4.90 for that. Stealth postage applies to almost all of your packages when you're doing a full label. There are some exceptions: insured, certified, a few extra services, and some foreign countries do not allow stealth postage, but otherwise it would always apply. If you see it on every single one, there is a setting in your Endicia settings where you can check mark for that. We're going to go there in a minute in the webinar for a different purpose, but I'll point it out when we see it, where to check to make sure that you're using stealth postage, taking advantage of that. Okay. Yes, how to remove that dollar amount. Okay. By the way, before I leave this page, this scan form, I want you to notice something about the scan form. And I know that it's really hard to read on your screen, but I want you to notice whose scan form this is. This is not a PostalMate form. We don't create this. See up here on the left, United States Post Office. And look down in the way lower left. This is an official USPS form. PS form 5630, blah, 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 post office. This is post office stuff. We don't create it. We don't store it. We don't make it. It is a pass-through. So basically what happens when you do a carrier pickup, then we send a query to Endicia saying, we're ready for the scan form. Would you please send it over? And Endicia does its magic with the post office, gets it and sends it to it. It's what we call a pass-through form. We don't do anything with it. We don't store it. Okay. It's a pass-through form. And occasionally it doesn't work. If Endicia, and Endicia's been known to do this, if Endicia does something that creates an interruption in that query, either it's not understanding the query, changed a code or something on their end, or maybe they have a server, one of their servers is down or something like that. There are times that you may try to get the scan form and you won't be able to get it. Okay. You should be able to go to your Endicia.com account and print it directly from Endicia if that happens. It doesn't mean that PostalMate did anything wrong. It means we sent out the query and Endicia didn't respond with the answer. So don't have a heart attack, but be prepared to go to your Endicia.com account and print it out from there. I said PostalMate doesn't store it. That's not quite true. I believe it is stored for, and I'm going to catch some something for this. I think it stores for 1 day because you can reprint it in PostalMate. I think it's a 1 day store. And folks, PostMate doesn't try, we try very hard not to store anything like this because it would be a picture. And as you know from your home computer, when you put photographs on your computer, it takes up your hard drive really fast. Can you imagine if we started storing pictures of everything? You'd have 360 of these a year. No, we're not going to store a lot of pictures, and that would just slow down PostalMate. So we take one picture of it, but it's always available at your Endicia.com account. And your post office driver carrier will scan this and that uploads the packages you created. But remember, that does not upload the drop-offs. So it would behoove you, I love that word. It would behoove you to have your drop-offs in a separate bin from your ones that are going to be on this form. And that way you can say to your postman, these you don't have to scan in, but drop-offs and quick postage, that's in this bin over here, those you need to scan in. And you might save him, 10, 20, 30 packages a day of having to scan in. He'll appreciate that. Just throw your scan form on top of that bin, say these are ready to go with this scan, these have to be scanned individually. You made his life a lot easier and he will appreciate that. Okay. And I will get to more questions, I promise. So what does the scan form do? Well, here's what it does. And if you do not use the scan form or before the scan form and your customer goes to track a package, the left side is what they will see. Pre-shipment, blah, blah, blah. And so it says that the post office is a waiting item. I hate that. I absolutely hate that because it implies that you still have the package and didn't give it to the post office yet. Shame on you, you dumb mail store. I'm never coming to you again. That's not the good feels you want your customer to have. Whereas once the scan form is scanned, all of those packages immediately flip to accepted. USPS picked up the item. Now it's out of your hands. First of all, you're not liable anymore for anything. Second of all, the customer knows you did your job. Third of all, when it's delayed, and it will be delayed because post offices had trouble lately, it's not your fault. It's clearly not your fault. They've accepted it. So this is magic. Trey, don't let me forget that. I'll come back to that. So we're going to talk now about the Global Advantage Program. It's called GAP in PostalMate. It's called GAP with Endicia too. Here's a long list of all kinds of things they think are wonderful about the GAP program. The GAP program was originally introduced to us as a solution for first-class international flats. So what you need to know about the GAP program is, first of all, it's in your PostalMate now. Second of all, it only affects international. Third of all, it's where Endicia handles the customs processing on behalf of the post office for certain packages. About 3 years ago or so, I'm bad with years. It could be 5, it could be 2. I don't know. I'm somewhere between 2 and 5 years ago. The post office stopped allowing first-class flat goods internationally. Now, I don't know why they did that exactly or how it, but first class flat goods, by the way, is not a lot of things. Remember, the flat has to be 3/4 of an inch or less, has to be uniform in shape and all those things. We've been sending a lot of things first class flat goods that we probably shouldn't. So there's not a lot of things that can be sent there, but there are some. And so Endicia said, well, we'll offer that service even though the post office doesn't, and we'll handle all the processing for it. And then because we worked out a deal with the post office. And so that's kind of what happened. And they introduced this GAP program and there was a fee for it. And the fee is built into PostalMate. It's there and everything, and you can charge up for it. And it makes it less than otherwise you'd have to send it as a first class international package. And that's a lot more money. So we went along for a few years, but just recently we've noticed that Endicia has changed things and we don't know what they've changed. They've not told us exactly what they've changed, but this program is affecting a lot more packages than just first class international with goods. We don't have any control over what packages it affects. So the pros of this are all the wonderful things Endicia says about it, and that it gives you an option the post office doesn't have for that first class flat goods. Remember, that's not a lot of things. The cons, in my opinion, this is just Karen's opinion, so take it for what it's worth. I'm not sure when Endicia is going to use it. I've seen him use it on Priority Mails International. I've seen him use it on other first class package services without me asking for it. So I don't get to select it all the time. There's only one time I get to select it in PostalMate. All the other times I select priority mail and they do it without me knowing. I'm not sure I really like that because the label looks different and there's an extra step there. Plus, I have to train my staff. And if the customer ever sees this label, they will totally freak out. I mean, totally freak out. So here's what it looks like in PostalMate. If you want to see it in your PostalMate, just do a lightweight flat to a country, like a pound, pound and a half, and you'll see that first class. It has to be under 4 pounds. First class mail international right here, and you'll see Gap and GP here and Gap up there. So here's the Gap surcharge in PostalMate. So the wholesale is $4.70. It's in your surcharges. $4.70. But over to the left, this is what the label looks like. And this is what is so weird. It actually goes not to the place you have it going to. This one is going to ES, so I assume that's Spain. España. But it's going to Los Angeles. It's going to Los Angeles post box or address there. And here you are sending it to Spain and you entered all this information for it going to Spain. And it's really puzzling if you're not familiar with this or you have a new employee or heaven forbid your customer sees this label, they will freak out. And so this is what the label looks like. What happens is it goes to that postal processing facility, Endicia processes it and then sends it out. I presume Endicia makes a cut on it and that's why they want to do this, but up to you whether you'd use it or not. Personally, just me, I would probably turn it off. But if you do a lot of international and have need for this, then keep it on. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying I like knowing exactly how my package is going to be handled that I selected and exactly all of, what service it is. I just like that a little bit more. I'm old fashioned. Give me a break. I'm a boomer. Okay. So here's the settings for this, and this is going to come back to the one I asked somebody else to remind me of, and I'll get to it. So in PostalMate, you go up to Tools and then PostalMate Settings, and then on the left-hand side, Carrier Setup, and then USPS, and then you're going to click on Endicia Settings, and then it's going to bring that up, and you're going to select on Options up at the top, and this is where you're going to where the Global Advantage program is, and you're going to uncheck that if you don't want it. It is automatically checked for everybody when it was introduced. We added it for everybody, sorry. But it you can uncheck it if you want. And then, by the way, over here, this is where the stealth postage, it was Rick. Rick, make sure that this is on your master workstation, that stealth postage is checkmarked here. Okay, and then it should apply every time it's available for you. Hopefully that takes care of it. So now, time for questions, and we can go straight to PostalMate if you have something. I have PostalMate up behind the screen if there's something you want to see in PostalMate. So go ahead and type in your questions. Folks, you guys have been really active. I've tried to keep up, but believe me, I have several hundred of you on board right now, and the question list is long. So I'm going to go back up to the top. And it jumps as I'm going through, so I'm going to miss things, and I apologize. If it's something that I haven't gotten to, then please email support@pcsynergy.com, and either support or I will address it later today or tomorrow. Okay, and let's see. Okay, I'm scrolling through, so bear with me. I'm sorry, this is the boring part. Gosh, I was good about catching these as they came along. Now you know how to argue with your post office. I love that, Sandy. Good one. Yeah. I did, yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I had a package measuring. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. This is a really good one. This is long from Wizwan. I had a package measuring 6 by 5 by 5 and weighing just under 12 ounces. When he entered it into PostalMate, the first and cheapest option was USPS first class mail flat for $4. Customer was thrilled with that option. Of course they were. When you went to finish the transaction, got an error saying it doesn't meet. This is what I said. The PostalMate will not watch for these sizes on shape-based mail. That's why we have classes on shape-based mail. You have to watch and know the rules on letters, flats, and first-class packages. That is a rule. That's why I suggested in your rate comparison screen, you enter the words must fit size requirements or size shape rules or something like that. I'm sure one of you are going to ask me how to do that. So if you want to see that, let me know and I'll show you that. Dimension, yes, rules. There are rules for sizes for letters and for flats. First class parcels really don't have size limits as far as how big it can be. First class parcels can be as big as you want it to be. I'm not kidding. It could be 20 by 20 by 20, and you can send a first class parcel package service. Excuse me, I keep saying parcel. First class package service. You won't be able to because of 20 by 20 by 20 is over 15.99 ounces. So that's why I say there's no limit, because the limit is actually the weight of 15.999 ounces. You can't get a box, a really, really big box for that. So, okay, I'm scrolling down further. My goodness, I really did do pretty good on that. I'm always so bad about it. How does the post office know which you're using? The printed label no longer differentiates between the two. Cindy, I'd need more info on that. I'm not sure what you're referring to, and I'm sorry for going back. Our postal carrier has never had a sign for certified. Ever since COVID started, they completely ignore it. And I don't know the rules for that, but I know that with most carriers, they have suspended signatures or semi-suspended signatures. So that doesn't surprise me. Printing out a 0 meter stamp that has the date on it in place of a round date is not legal. I mean, it's fine. And like I said, your local jurisdiction may accept it, your justice of the peace and maybe your city or government, but the IRS will not. And really, that's what we really care about, because that's dollars. I did have a store, I want to say he was in Utah a couple of years ago, who had a customer who sued him over USPS sending taxes things and sued him for the tax. I mean, he was obviously looking for anybody to, because the actual tax envelope got there late. The postage date was a day later than but he had a sign in the store saying mail pickup 3 p.m. And this guy came after 3 p.m. and the judge looked at it and looked at the sign, picture of the sign, and said, store did their part. You didn't say it had to go out today. So anyway. Okay, scrolling way down. No update to net stamps yet. I'm just not sure. Endicia keeps skipping it and skipping it, skipping it. Most of us have run out of the old stamps for quick postage and are using net stamps now, but either works unless you're using the net stamp software or web services. If you're only using PostalMate, the old stamps still work in most cases. I can't say it's true for 100% of you because Endicia does internal things that have changed how the behavior works when they send the label back to you. So if whatever you're currently doing, you can continue doing. We have no notice of anything changing in the near future. I still think something will, but yeah. So the 4x8 sheets of EPS styrofoam, I recommend 1 inch. I also used to carry occasionally some 2 inch. They're quite expensive in 2 inch, but the 1 inch was perfect. If you uncheck Global Advantage, it will turn off the package going to the processing center. That's correct. Does it cost more to send the package by turning this function off? No, I don't think your cost changes on everything, on anything. The only difference is you wouldn't be able to send first class flat goods. But remember, that is a very seldom, and that's for international only. So it's a very seldom, needed thing. So if all those other factors I talked about are more important than that once in a blue moon offering, then I would turn that off. And yes, this is recorded and you will get the recording. Registered mail is a no. You cannot send registered mail, Andrea. Watch the very, very first part when you get the link in your email. It was the first thing we talked about, so you won't have to go through the whole thing. And how do you change the processing of the USPS scan form? You call Endicia up and you say, I want to change my scan form from automatic to manual. I want to change it from automatic to manual. You may have to escalate that call. And can a letter with a clasp that is not showing be considered a letter? Yes. If you have a manila envelope and it has a clasp and you don't use the clasp and you seal it, usually the lick ones, you lick it and seal it and the clasp is not poking through, then that should be fine because it's the clasp catching on machinery that is the problem. So if the clasp is completely covered, it should be fine. So if I ship a certified letter after my 3 p.m. pickup, but before closing the same day, it will not be on the next day scan sheet. That is correct, unless you have asked Endicia to turn your scan forms to manual so that they clear out manually instead of clear out automatically. Okay, Jordan asked for that. Don't let me forget. They by law, your postal carrier or post office has to scan the scan form. They carry a scanner with them and they are required by law to scan it. So don't let them not say, I don't want to scan it or I don't know what that is or whatever. They have to by law. There is one little exception to that, and this will affect a handful of you. If you are in an area where you are serviced by a contract worker rural route carrier, they do not carry the scanners and are not required to scan those. That is a very, very low percentage. I'll bet we don't have, out of 3,200 stores, I'll bet we don't have 10. How does the post office get away with some things and we have to abide by the rules? You can drop things off with stamps in the blue bins and blah, 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 things that we can't do. I'll tell you, here's one even more. First class packages, we can't print quick postage for, but the post office can. If you go to the post office, they have the ability to print out a little stamp for a package service. And they won't allow Endicia or us to do it. So post office has a separate set of rules for them than they do for us sometimes. Okay. Checking the stealth means it doesn't show the postage amount whenever possible on the 4x6 label only. That does not apply to stamps. When sending certified return receipt, our Endicia label with the date shipped is not considered a legal date stamp. That's correct. Only a scan from the scan form or a round date with the form 3800 at the post office is considered legal. Does anybody have any magic words they use to make the carrier scan drop-offs? I'm not sure what the rules are for the post office scanning drop-offs. Clearly he should, but I would be more concerned if they weren't scanning your packages you created. Rizwan, that's a book. I'm going to have to come back to it in a minute. Somebody got gobsmacked. I'm not sure what I said. Is there a way to check the Endicia scan forms before the call? No. There's no setting in PostalMate to do it. It's only in Endicia, and we can't scan the scan form because it's encrypted, so we don't know what it says. So there's no way of knowing. How would you ship a 9x6 by 0.75 rigid mailer, non-machinable, 2.4 ounces? If it's rigid, it's a parcel. It's too thick to be a letter. It's the right size for a flat, but it's rigid. So now it's a parcel package service. 0 meters down. Okay. All right. So there is one thing I was asked to, that is correct, Vicki. Okay, I was asked to go to PostalMate. I'm going to show you how to add words to the screen for time in transit for post office. It's a lot of instructions. Get your pen and paper ready and abbreviate, abbreviate, abbreviate. Okay, here we go. In PostalMate, we go on your master workstation to the top to Edit, Shipping Carrier, SC. And then we scroll down to the bottom, United States Postal Service. Edit. Now we find the service we want to do, and they are in, I don't know what order they're in, folks, but let's just look at this. First class package service retail, okay? Highlight it, then click edit. On the top, you'll see some tabs. Go to display, and here is where you can put it in. And on this one, I put okay for personal use, 2 to 7 days. Actually, I would say okay for any use. 2 to 7 days plus, or 2 to 9 days plus, whatever you want to say there. That's how you do that. I'll show you. Let's go down and use the other package service, which is right. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Last one. There we go. Edit. Display. No letter or cards. 2 to 7 days plus. That's what I did. So you can do whatever. Put in whatever you want there. Okay. If I missed any questions, go ahead and type it in again. I'm going to go back and read this really, really long one. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to read that after because that's a feature request. Okay. Can you use a forever stamp for an international letter? Yes. Is there a way to hide the postage costs when creating certified mail from PostalMate? No, the post office does not allow that. My sheet for the postman to scan did not show up when he picked up, so I could not print it. Then print it from your Endicia.com account. Will USPS ever pay us for drop-offs? Good one. Okay. Can you, I think I already went through that, Jimmy. My post office says acceptance pending instead of acceptance accepted. Why? It should say accepted, but if it says acceptance pending, I don't know. I haven't seen that, but you know what? Take that up with Endicia. We're so far removed from that. We're just passing things through, and we just kind of do what we're told by Endicia. So it is possible that the post office has changed something. So what you can do today is, let's say you have a mail piece and your pickup is at 3 p.m. Write down the tracking number, and then maybe at 5 o'clock in the evening, track that thing and see what it says. So we're getting a few questions about post office, especially not getting there on time. So let me tell you just really quickly, in case you didn't know what happened recently. And this was through the Christmas holidays, but the overflow is continuing. Here we are in April, and we're still seeing some fallout from it. First of all, UPS, we know it was a stupid busy year last year. I mean, that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. It's a good thing. But UPS and FedEx got to a point that they were so busy and there were so many packages that they cut off pickups from big account holders. Yeah, they chose their big, you know why they chose their big account holders? Because they don't make as much money. They give bigger discounts to those guys. So Costco was one of them, for example, where UPS and FedEx said, we can't pick up, or we're only going to pick up once a week, and what fits on the truck is it. That's all we're taking. Well, all these big people had to find another way to get their packages. Well, they went to the other carrier, and the other carrier said, no, we're not taking any new big accounts right now. So the only thing left was post office. And here's the thing. Federal law requires the post office to accept every single thing that qualifies. So they could not refuse all these additional packages. The problem was they were just as backlogged or more so than FedEx and UPS. So now it became epic, and all these packages ended up backlogged. And I know that in March, I was still hearing trickle stories of people getting their December packages delivered. So all that has created kind of one disaster after another. Not only are they shorthanded with COVID, not only did they have to have all these other rules in place, but now they've got, had that backlog. So it is not surprising to me at all that that this has happened, that you're seeing slowness with USPS. I suspect the Postmaster General has said that they want to start having longer time frames for mail, particularly first class, and I do think that will pass. It's only been 2 or 3 days, 1 to 3 days in the last few years. It used to always be about a 5-day service, so I think it'll be going back to that soon. When would you close out this scan notice? Oh, when you change your status at Endicia from automatic to manual, nothing in your operations changes. You still do the same thing in PostMate every time when your postman comes, or when you print the scan form at the same time. It's just that your leftover packages from the night before will be on your scan form. So it's an internal process at Endicia. It doesn't change anything that you do in your store. Well, I'm glad you had customers, Vicki. Just watch the webinar, or watch the recording. By the way, these recordings generally go out 2 to 3 hours after the end of the recording. It takes like an hour for it to render, and then I have to upload it. Okay, so I think that's everything that I can see, again, without going too crazy. Does USPS audit sizes and recorrect like UPS and FedEx? Yes, but they're not quite as good at it as UPS and FedEx. And the reason they're not quite as good at it is because they don't have the millions of surcharges, and the return on the investment of the equipment for that doesn't necessarily pay for it. Whereas with FedEx, scanners are ridiculously expensive and very, very good that they have, and they pay for themselves probably in a week. So, yeah. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next time. We'll have another webinar probably next month on another hot topic. We got some interesting things coming up. So take care. Have a good week. Bye-bye, everybody.